Hey guys, so here we are again with our second episode of Veterans in Victory podcast. I'm Stephen Underwood, founder and CEO of Veterans in Victory Incorporated, and we are here to fight for those who have fought for us, our veterans of our community and the North Georgia, Chattanooga area. Of course, we always want to focus on how we can help those suffering from PTSD, those that may find themselves in a homeless situation or on the verge of homelessness and just need some assistance, and also those that may be fighting addiction and seeking substance abuse and recovery. And we just want to be that liaison, that intermediate between our veterans and where they can find help, and we want to be that help in their time of need. And so that's who we are. Just a quick overview of what we discussed on the first episode. Those are the three aspects of veteran issues that we want to focus on and put our attention to. All of this started because of our dear brother, Caleb Massey, that we served with in Iraq in 2006 and 2007, succumbing to his own struggles with PTSD and taking his life. And so we just want to honor his legacy and remember him in the best way that we can. And we believe that that is exactly what we are doing by serving other veterans. Today, I want to address something that I mentioned in the first episode very briefly, but for the last decade, my family and I served as missionaries overseas. We lived in South Africa and Peru for a year of language school, and then in Argentina. And we loved every moment of every place that we lived. We saw some great things happen. Our focus was in very poverty-stricken areas. When we were in South Africa, we worked with the Xhosa people, which is the second largest tribal group in South Africa. They speak the Xhosa language, which is a clicking language. Just to be 100% transparent and honest with you, it was a struggle and a battle to try to learn Xhosa. As a matter of fact, I'm barely able to even continue to do the clicks, and I'm not even sure I ever learned to do them correctly. But I was, just to put it into perspective for you, I was more comfortable after a year of Spanish language school than after 3 years of studying Xhosa in South Africa. Not to say that one is harder than the other, but it was just different. One of the keys to learning a language is full immersion, and that seemed to be a challenge in South Africa because even in the townships, a lot of the more educated ones would speak English. I remember one encounter that there was a gentleman and his daughter, and I was talking with them, and I was talking to his daughter in English because she spoke perfect English, and or excuse me, no, I'm sorry, we were speaking Xhosa, and he interrupted me. He said, "Speak English to her. She speaks it very well. She is educated." And he almost took offense to the fact that I was speaking Xhosa to his daughter. And so, out of respect for him, I started speaking English. But full immersion is one of the key factors that being able to not only learn a language, but also to adapt into a culture. And that's exactly what we set out to do. So we worked in those areas where other people were afraid to go. We tried to work with people that nobody else wanted to work with. I was able to serve under another missionary that's still there in South Africa today, doing a wonderful job, and really grow and learn from him and his experience. And there was a team of missionaries there that are still currently there, just doing a fantastic job. And they became very close friends, very good friends, and just thankful for their influence. But one thing that I learned during that time is that regardless of our geography, there are people that are hurting all over the world. And I may not be the most talented, most eloquent, most gifted guy there is, but I can care about those that nobody else cares about. And so it has often been said that the veteran community in the United States is one of the most forgotten communities that exist. And, you know, if I'm not going to argue politics, we may eventually, because it's my podcast and talk about whatever I want, but I'm not going to right now. But it's often been said that, you know, illegal immigrants have more rights and more benefits than our veterans do. And if you look at that, you could kind of see some of that being true to an extent. Um, and so I do not want to ever overlook uh, those that have given and sacrificed not only their time, their bodies, but many times their families to serve our country and protect the freedom and the liberty that we do have. We just celebrated July 4th, a very patriotic day for us, something that we all get to enjoy. And and that's all due to the fact that there's been men and women throughout uh, the centuries that have raised their right hand and they've sworn oath to protect our country against both enemies, foreign and domestic. And being a veteran myself, that's something that I still believe in. I still want to be that sheepdog, that protector of the innocent, those that are less fortunate, and I have the ability to help them. That's exactly what I want to do. And so, and saying all that, I did learn in my time as a foreign missionary that there are people that are hurting all over the world. When we were in Peru, it was at the height of COVID. That was my second time living in Peru. I was able to go down there for a 6-month internship as a student right out of high school. And the Peru that we lived in during COVID was a much different Peru than I remember as a teenager. We had to wear 2 masks and a face shield in most places. Even walking around Machu Picchu, we got to take a trip up there, and you're outside in the middle of nowhere, and you had to wear a face mask. And so, we look back and it's kind of silly and all of that. As a matter of fact, I just read that apparently, supposedly, and again, I'm not arguing this with anybody, but supposedly Dr. Fauci, who put in place all of the regulations, said that he just made up the six feet rule, that it really didn't have any bearing. And, I always thought it was kind of crazy. Now, here's one of my rants for you. I always thought it was kind of crazy. You go into a store and there's a plastic partition separating you from the cashier or whatever, but it's only like 4 feet wide. So it's like, okay, this is supposed to protect you from COVID, but COVID can't go around 4 feet. And so, I just never understood a lot of the things that they put in place. However, of course, that's not the podcast episode. Getting back on track, it was a much different place, but there was still one thing that was very certain and very common, and that was that there were hurting people. There were people that were looking for assistance. They were looking for aid. They were looking for hope. And you can't help everyone. We said this in the last episode. We may not be able to change the world. We may not be able to save the world. But if we can help one or two, then we can lay our head on our pillow at night knowing that we have done what we can to do something beyond ourselves. And that's really the point of this is we will never turn anyone away. We want to try to help as many as we can, but there's only a certain amount that's feasible, humanly possible. And so, and continuing to go with that, serving as a foreign missionary, of course, I was faith-based. Our financial support and backing came from partnering churches from all around the United States. And we traveled around the U.S. prior to going to the mission field, presenting our goals, presenting our plan for ministry to these churches, and many of them decided that they would support us anywhere from $25 a month to one of the highest supporting churches that we had supported us at $250 a month. And so when you have enough of those built up, then you can go and you can live off of the generosity of those churches and be able to do ministry work and all of that. And I'm going to talk more about that in the future. I want to explain kind of how all of that works, because there are some misconceptions about foreign missionaries and why they need so much funds that are coming in. And I remember one time having to give an answer to why I was raising so much money, and I said, well, we don't have a deacon board behind us helping us to pay for the facilities, pay for the lights. We don't have members of a church that are tithing, that are given to programs, to a building program or anything like that. All of this is coming out of our pockets because the people that we're talking about, they don't have anything. If they can't buy rice for their family for the evening, then how in the world are we going to expect them to give anything to help our church or help our ministry? And so that is something that we're going to get into more of a detailed discussion over some time, and I hope to have a couple of different guests and their perspective that can help talk about that some, because like I said, this podcast is really, it's not just focusing on veterans and what we're doing, but we want to cover anything and everything that we possibly can when it comes to helping and serving others. And so we were a faith-based, we were Baptist missionaries. We still are Baptist, and we hold to their doctrines. And unashamedly, I am a follower of Jesus Christ. However, the question was asked, what was our plan with Veterans in Victory as far as sharing the gospel? And I want to be very clear. I do personally believe that the gospel is the only lasting answer to all of these issues that we're talking about. I believe that it's a relationship with Jesus Christ that pulled me from my despair, my hopelessness, and gave me a purpose, not only a purpose in this life, but a hope for eternity. And that's an assurity. That's not, I hope I get to heaven. That's an assurity that I get to heaven based on the scriptures. And so I unashamedly believe that. The reason that Veterans in Victory is a secular nonprofit, and just going to cut to the chase on it, is because we don't want to be limited by the people that we help, by the funds that we're able to receive, the grants that we're allowed to apply for, and the programs that we're allowed to be a part of. And so if you're a faith-based organization, there are certain federal and state grants that you can't even apply for because they don't offer them to faith-based organizations. And so we don't want to be limited by that. Not only that, but when we're talking about substance abuse and addiction and things like that, a lot of times these guys don't even understand that the reason that they're in the position that they might be in is the consequences of their own actions. I don't think any one of us could deny that. There's decisions that I've made in the past that have affected me, and I might find myself in a position right now that you might not think is very good, or might not think is great, or could have been better, or whatever, but they're the consequences of decisions. Every decision we make has a consequence, whether good or bad. So we're not going to argue the fact that some of them have made some decisions that have brought them to the point in place that they are right now. It doesn't mean that we don't help them. It doesn't mean that we don't care for them and try to get them out of that. But it does mean that we have to come to the realization that we are all independently and individually responsible for our actions. And in saying that, these guys, a lot of times they can be pretty hard-hearted. They can be pretty shut off to anything spiritual. There's a quote that a mentor has said many times, and if you ask him, I'm going to have him on the show eventually, but if you ask him, he'll probably tell you who said it, and he probably stole it. But if not, then I'll give him credit for it. It's fine. But he's always said, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so that is a thought, that is a quote that I keep in the back of my mind at all times, because I can't speak into someone's life and try to help them. I can't try to guide them or influence them for the positive if I haven't showed them exactly how much I truly care about them. So I can't expect to go to the homeless guy on the street and say, hey buddy, if you don't repent and turn from your sins, then you're going to die and go to hell. I can't go up to a guy and say that when he questions God's existence. He's going to shut me down from the very beginning. He's going to say, you know what, you can go on about your business. I'm going to go on about mine. And that'll be the last conversation I ever have with him. It'll be the last opportunity I ever have to help this guy. And so I'm just not going to do that. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's not up to you. Quite frankly, this is my deal. I'm running it, so I get to do it the way I want to. And that might sound a little arrogant, but go start your own, and then we can work together for the same cause. It'd be great. The more people that we have that are out there volunteering and trying to make a difference, the better. I'll never compete with any of you. I'll never compete with other organizations. As a matter of fact, I'll promote and help in any way that I possibly can. But if there's a certain way that you'd like to do it, wonderful, go do it. But because I'm doing it, I'm going to do it the way that I think is best. And so I do believe that investing the time to establish a relationship, to build that relationship, to be able to speak truth into them to where they know that I care about them, and it's not for personal gain, it's not for any other accolades, it's not for some financial gain or awards that might be given or anything like that. It's simply, hey, you're an individual. I see you. I hear you. I understand your frustrations, and I want to help you. Then I have an open door to be able to speak to them the truths that I believe along the way. And, I've had many friends that were completely shut off to any spiritual conversation, any Christ centered conversation. And it took a long time for them to see my testimony or my reputation or my lifestyle before they ever even asked a single question. And I'm not talking about we don't ever share the gospel or we don't ever. I do believe that those things are a responsibility that each believer has to do. But I do believe that there is a time, that there is a moving, if you will, of the Holy Spirit that will guide us in that, and that there is a method in which we use to be most effective. If we look at Scripture, you see that Jesus, before he started preaching, what did he always do? He always met a physical need. Yes, he rebuked the Pharisees, he rebuked his own disciples, but when it came to the masses, when it came to the multitudes, we know that he fed the 5,000. We know that he fed 3,000. We know that he healed the blind, he healed the deaf. He performed these miracles, and then he preached a sermon. Then he preached a message. The whole entire Sermon on the Mount, he fed all of them. And of course, that was a miracle in and of itself. But he met a physical need in order to be able to speak to their spiritual need. And so we want to follow that example, and we want to help meet a physical need that they have, whether it's getting them out of off the street into recovery. We want to have that relationship with them that we can then have the open door to say, look, we care about you. There's something else we'd like to talk to you about. And it may or may not be the right time, but that is not up to me. And so I want to be very careful about explaining to our followers, our listeners, and anybody that is considering supporting our organization that, yes, I personally am a believer and a follower of Jesus Christ. However, we are a secular nonprofit, and we will go about it in a way that will meet the guidelines and the regulations that are set forth for secular nonprofits to be able to have access to programs and funding offered by secular organizations and state and federal governments. And so that's the reason for it. And so I know that was a whole lot of information in a short amount of time, but that is exactly why we are set up the way that we're set up. And I believe that this is the most effective way, not only to be able to advance with our mission and cause, but also the most effective way to reach a group that has seen hell on earth. That's something else, is that when you start talking about PTSD and talking about war veterans, you can't really scare them with much. You go up to a homeless guy that's been living under a bridge for the last several years, and you try to threaten him with something, chances are you're the one that's going to get the beat down. Chances are that he's going to look at you and he's going to say, buddy, you don't know what hell is, because I've lived it. And so it's going to be hard to try to threaten them with anything or scare them with anything. You're not going to scare a drug addict into hell. And so you're not going to scare a war veteran into hell, or out of hell, rather. So there's a different approach that you got to take with some of these guys. And there is one approach that I believe breaks down every barrier. I've seen it in South Africa. I've seen it in Peru. I've seen it in Argentina. The one approach that tears down every barrier across cultures, across languages, across preconceived notions and ideas, across beliefs, is one four-letter word, and that's Love, love. And I believe that when we have a genuine love, a genuine desire to help and serve others, that it doesn't matter what brick walls are built in a person's life, that those walls eventually, it may be brick by brick, it may be a lot quicker, I don't know. But eventually, love will tear down those barriers, and then you'll have access to influence and guide in ways that you never would have if you just went in with a wrecking ball. And so we are endeavoring to help as many as that we can. I have another friend that has a nonprofit here in the Dalton area. It's called Any Path Recovery, and his name's Kerry Hawkins, good friend of mine, just a heart of gold. But he was addicted to drugs. I want to say, if memory serves me correct, it was meth for nearly 30 years, and he's been 10 years sober now. And at one point, he tried to take his life, and it just has a powerful story. But he started Any Path Recovery here in Dalton, and he told me this. He said, Stephen, you're going to want to help everyone, and you're going to want to see everyone come out on the other side clean, sober, and moving forward. He said, but in order for you not to be consumed with it, in order for you to be able to live a halfway normal life, to enjoy your family and not just be depressed and angry and upset all of the time, you're going to have to learn to separate and understand the fact that the great majority of them will not leave their positions. When you have that one that does, great. We'll rejoice in that. We'll celebrate it. But the great majority of those that we're going to try to help probably won't accept it. Or if they start, they'll fall away. They may have a good go for a while, but at some point they're going to relapse. He said it's just the nature of the beast. And so in understanding that, it is very difficult to grasp sometimes, because we want to see them succeed. We want to see them in recovery. We want to see them be able to get out of that addiction, out of their homeless situation. We want to see them get help with the post-traumatic stress disorder that they struggle with without any harm to themselves or anyone else. We want to see everyone become a success story. But the reality is that it's not going to be the majority. It's going to be the minority. And they are not going to be the rule. They will be the exception. And so that doesn't mean that we don't try to help absolutely everyone. In sales, we have what's called the numbers game. For every 100 contacts that you make, you might get 10 that are going to actually close. Well, the numbers may not look the same when it comes to what we're doing. It may be with every 100 you have 5 that close. And saying that, you might have 5 people that make it all the way through a recovery or make it through counseling and are able to turn their life around. But it doesn't mean that we don't go after 100. We still are going after anyone and everyone that we possibly can to help them. And we are going to rejoice the ones that come out on the other side. And just being 100% honest and transparent, I'm going to mourn those that don't. One last story. I think I mentioned it on the first episode, but I met a Marine, last name Kelly, and was ready to take him to a crisis unit because another rehab facility did not have any bed availability. And so on the way to pick him up to take him to this crisis unit, he ended up getting high, and he changed his mind. He asked me for $40, and when I wouldn't give him $40, he got angry with me. And was yelling at me and all of that. And of course I said, man, I'm not giving you money. I said, I'll buy you food. I'll make sure that you've got a blanket to stay warm. I'll take you to the crisis unit. We'll try to get you the help that you need, but I'm not giving you money. And I won't do that now. Anybody that gets mad because I won't give them money, well, that's on them. That's not what we're about. But I will help. And I haven't heard from him since. And unfortunately, that is the rule. That's the majority. But it don't mean that if he didn't reach out to me today that I wouldn't try to help him in the same way that I did before. And so that's today's episode. I think we went a little bit longer than expected. but just to give you a little bit more insight, a little bit more backstory about how we are approaching trying to help others in their need and address some of those issues. Uh, we want to meet some physical needs, and then down the road see the opportunity to meet some deeper, possibly spiritual, mental needs. And so, thank you guys for joining us again. I appreciate your love and support for us and our mission, what we're doing. We're going to keep plugging away. I was told, given some advice on these podcasts, because you can tell I'm still very new. If you're wondering why I'm wearing an Argentina jersey, I'm going to a match tonight, and this is the only soccer jersey I have. So I am a fan of Argentina, the selección, and so I'm going to be sporting my Argentina jersey at a game that has nothing to do with Argentina. So, but thank you again for joining us. We're going to keep plugging away. We're going to keep fighting for those who have fought for us. Thanks, and have a great evening.